Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out to Bear Nation for tuning in for another episode of the Bare Necessities of Entrepreneurship, a podcast for the entrepreneur-minded, created by entrepreneurs, discussing the real stories that give you the tools to overcome challenges and stay true to your real self. As always, I want to give a shout out to our partners over at Finn. Finn is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. We've teamed up with Finn to give back to the communities that we serve. For every episode, we will be donating $10 to the cause of choosing by our guests in the Finn platform. Enjoy today's episode. Bear Nation, what is up? How we doing? We are back for another episode of the Bare Necessities of Entrepreneurship. Today, I have a guest with you. She is the Get Shit Done Queen, Alex Batdorf. She is a 3-time entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Get Shit Done, a collaborative supporting Womxn entrepreneurs in scaling generational impact. Their motto is fuck 4%, because women entrepreneurs make up nearly 50% of entrepreneurs, yet their companies only generate a total of, you guessed it, 4% business revenues. Get Shit Done is a tribe of Womxn founders, gives 4% the middle finger by saying traction from increasing revenues 5,000% in 30 days. All that being said, Alex is a badass. And prior to founding this amazing community that's continued to grow year over year, she was a co-founder and CMO of Zip Fit Denim, a multi-million-dollar venture-backed e-commerce company that was acquired in 2019. She's been featured in Forbes and Business Insider and has spoken around the nation at Harvard, Turner Broadcasting, et cetera, et cetera. So I am excited to introduce my guest, Alex. Alex, say hello to Bear Nation for me.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And, I give that long, big intro for people to kind of mull on. But let's talk a little bit about the Get Shit Done community and what it's all about and why you started it. Before we get into anything else, we'll go through your journey. We'll talk some other stuff, get deep. But I love this community, and I had the amazing opportunity to come speak at their cohort number 6 and do a session. And tell you what, the founders were just fucking awesome. So tell me a little about the community you've been building with Get Shit Done these last few years.
It's always really funny when anyone mentions community with Get Shit Done, because 3 years ago, if you would have told me I would be building community, I would have laughed in your face. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Because and we'll get into this, but my former companies were straight like tech, even though we're still a tech-enabled company. But I would be like, community wasn't as prevalent then. But really, the community we built is based on my own journey as an entrepreneur and feeling like, there's not a lot of women at the table. I'm fortunate to have, scaled to points that unfortunately many women have not been able to, whether it's from a revenue perspective or from a funding perspective. And when I was, about to leave my last company, I really wanted to dive into what's happening for women entrepreneurs and why aren't we getting the support that we really need? And let's take funding off the table, because that is typically not the problem. We'll get into that later. And so I really looked at, what were the things that helped me to get to where I had been able to get to? And how can we create that and replicate that within a community? So we call it a collaborative because that's truly what it is. Community to me is not enough. Example, I'm a Black woman. I'm a part of the Black community. That doesn't mean I interact with everybody that's Black. I might give them a what's up on the street, but that doesn't mean we're actually getting things done together. Yeah. And so when it comes down to entrepreneurship, I'm like, everything that has helped me get to where I am is because of pure collaboration. It is someone that was willing to advocate for me and vice versa, collaborating, getting on calls. Some of my favorite things to do even today, not even just with my mentors, but my peer mentors, is saying, yo, what do you think about this? Getting on a quick call, just doing rapid feedback. And that's what we saw when we rolled out our accelerator too, was, wait, the magic isn't just from founders coming to learn theories. It's about how do we activate them? And so that was really how we got to the point of community. Because even when we started Get You Done, I never even thought of it as a community. I'm like, we're just going to help founders gain traction because that's really important. Traction makes everything else irrelevant. That check you want from an investor, that scale you want, traction solves those problems. But we realized that in order for us to activate in a scalable way, we needed to create a space where founders could collaborate and engage in that way. So community became a huge piece of it. And that's really what we're starting to lean way more into.
I love that. And I think that, you're right. I still question, like, what is community, right? What is ecosystem? What is network? And I always kind of come back to the piece of, network. And, I have a list of people that I call my brand amplifiers and brand ambassadors. And they're the top 100 people. And it rotates, it changes of like, hey, I need a post liked, I need something shared, I need some activity here, or I need somebody to lean on. I have a question. I need this. I need that. And those brand amplifiers are those that I know I can call anytime, day or night, text, whatever. They're going to get back to me. They're going to give me their real fucking talk. They're not going to bullshit me. They're going to tell me what I need to hear when I need to hear it. And they're the ones who I make those networking connections to, and I'm always passing stuff around. And I kind of come back to when you realize that you have these communities around you that you can activate, you have access to, you can connect, you can network, you can grow, you can connect others to. That's where the magic happens. And I think we talk about communities and create a place for it, but the magic is in the collaboration within the community, which is why I love that you call it a collaborative instead of like a community. I think that's a really interesting thing for people because we don't think about it that way. Yeah, and
that's such a good point because I've been having this discussion so much lately where even when, like, at the beginning of this year, 2021, we're going to roll out this community, and something in my gut just kept saying, no, we're not calling it a community. Something just was not sitting right for me. And I think it's because I'm sure you have, and people listening have too, I have been a part of so many communities with great intentions, but the issue is that it's okay, well, we're going to give you'll get access to all these people, and there's probably a directory and whatnot. The issue with that becomes you get the same people speaking and showing up because we're presuming that people are all equipped to be like you and me, where we're natural extroverts and can connect with people. Most people are not like that. And especially when you're a busy founder, where you're like, where is my place here? Where do I go here? Who do I speak to here? Because A, I don't really know where I fit in. And B, I don't have the time to try to figure it out. That's what we had to get to the point of is like, if we're going to have a community that collaborates, we also have to go the extra mile to make sure we are segmenting our founders in a way that it makes it easy for them to connect and collaborate with each other, not just in their vertical, but also based on their stage as well. Because what someone who's at launch stage is dealing with is completely different from someone who's at Series A. Not saying they can't learn from each other, but you need to have spaces for them to be able to connect and be a part of the whole group, but also have their subgroups as well. Yeah.
And that's where I think things get so watered down too. Like I'm in so many Slack groups and communities, and there's 15 different channels people are talking to. I'm trying to follow threads. It gets really overwhelming. And when you have these different when you try to figure this out, it just becomes this big web of things that well-intentioned, but sometimes not always executed the right way. And in fact, as I think about like Bear Nation, what we're building here, I said in the first episode that I wanted to create a community for other communities, meaning I wanted people to be a part of Bear Nation, but hey, you need an accelerator program, you need this, you need that. Hey, I can introduce you to those people. I don't want to be building a deep community that I'm keeping held in. I want to create like a stopping point, a transition point for you to like, hey, this is all about entrepreneurship. This is amazing. Where can I go learn more and where the next steps are? And that to me is really important. In fact, I'm actually launching in October when this episode comes out. So be about the same time, group coaching sessions, like mastermind groups. And so they're very like clear on who and for what, so that there's this small audience of group coaching, bring what's on your desk and do some really cool things. But I don't want to try to build something too big. It's just like get people in a room that need to be in the room that have expressed a very desire for something, and we're going to put them in that room, but not trying to, and then like let them go off to other things. You know,
I love that.
Like it's a monthly thing. It's super cheap, and like you come and go if you please. No contract, as much as you want or as little. At some point, you're going to probably be like, I learned a lot from this, but I need to take that next step. Cool. Let me point you in the right direction. Here's 15 other coaches, things, groups, accelerators, etc. that you go to. Yeah. I want to be that transition step. And that's what I, feel really passionate about, because there are so many great communities that are doing things the right way that I want to help kind of tie that together. But, whole other thing. But that's something that that's what I think I loved and vibed with you so much about when we started talking about what you were building and all that, was because there's very clear intention and growth, and there's like a goal for everyone that comes through that program and what it means to be a part of that tribe, really. And that's what I think is really important. So I want to kind of take a step back in your career. I want to kind of understand, like, how did you get into entrepreneurship? Like, what was your journey into this, from going to the University of Chicago into all the things, like your background is vast in marketing and all these things, and you were a show host, and then getting into this co-founder CMO role. So did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Like, how did you find this passion in entrepreneurship and then now supporting entrepreneurs?
Yeah, no, I'm a mixed bag. And this is why, like, some mindset stuff, self-care things can rub me the wrong way sometimes, because really context matters. Our environments really matter. So like this whole thing, if you just can believe it, you can be it. And it's like, but if they can't see it, how are you going to believe it? Mm-hmm. I'm very fortunate, and I think we need to start getting comfortable speaking about our privileges. I did not come from money, but I was never in deep poverty. And I came from a very loving family, especially with even just my parents. And my parents got divorced when I was, around 8. My mom was the type that if I wanted to do something, she would put me in that activity. So I was think of the book, if you've read the book Range, where it's just like, be a generalist, all these things. I was that from a kid. I was like, one day I want to do tap, the next day I want to do basketball, and then I want to do soccer, and then I want to go back to dance and do ballet, and then I want to play guitar. And my mom was like, okay, I'm down for the ride, Yeah. And I would basically get good at these things and then figure out, do I actually like this thing? Oh, I figured it out, but I don't really love it. On to the next. I want to explore. Yeah. And fast forward, I was never that kid that was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. But the one thing I can say is, when adults used to ask me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? My mom will tell you I was the kid that was like, I'm going to rule the world. And it was so funny because, adults would just laugh and be like, oh my God, that's so cute. And I'd be like, dead ass face. Like, what are you laughing about? And ruling the world to me as a kid was like, how do you make an impact? And in my head was like, how do I help people? I didn't know what that looked like as a kid. I remember I used to write a lot, like poetry. At some point, my friends and I were like creating a band, and then I realized that I couldn't sing worth a shit. So I'm like, wait, but I can be your manager. Oh, I can write the songs, and I really like directing people. And It's so funny because today I always look to other industries to get on inspiration. So like the entrepreneurial space actually doesn't inspire me as much as like athletics and entertainment. I get my most inspiration from there. So like A&R executives like Clive Davis, Clarence Avon, to be able to figure out and see that talent and cultivate it is really big. So I've been really good at that. And so when I got to undergrad, fast forward, and again, this is where context matters, I get into school in 2008. And so we're just like, we are seeing all these people coming out who were told, you get a piece of paper and your life's set. Well, now we have these people. My undergrad at the time was $60,000 a year. It's like $100,000 a year, which is fucking insane. Mm-hmm. But you see all these people coming into one of the top schools in the world, and they can't even get a job. Mm-hmm. And so we're now like, fuck this. Like they fed us a lie. I still truly believe in education, but they fed us a lie. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so it's not, it reminds me of Outliers and Malcolm Gladwell's work. It's saying, you know, if you look a lot at history and when certain entrepreneurs came out, it was in these very unique moments. I'm really excited about even now the new wave of entrepreneurs coming from the pandemic. And so in that time was 2008. So we're going in like, well, they lied to us, so we got to take advantage of our own fates and our own destinies. So there was a slew of entrepreneurs that later went on to go to the YCs and be, you know, recognized by the White House. We raised money, blah, blah, blah. And then that started this wave of entrepreneurship after we left at UFC. Now they have like a fund. It's this whole thing. But I say that because those collection of experiences was, I knew as a little kid I wanted to rule the world in my own way. That to me was impact. I didn't know what that meant long term. But when I got into school and I started seeing, wait, look at all of these entrepreneurs building these platforms and they're able to have impact. And I never even really thought of entrepreneurship. Like I was exposed to it. Like I had a, you know, we call her auntie, but she's a friend of the family who was successful, like businesswoman in the cookie industry business. And I saw that. That was my scope on it. And it was cool because not only did my first inclination of entrepreneurship was not just a person, but it was a woman and it was a Black woman. So entrepreneurship to me was someone that was me. So I was like, oh, interesting. So all of these collections of experiences and context, why I bring this up is that it activated. So when I first started my first company, which was my first two were in the fashion tech space, it was just saying, well, based on my interests and what I'm good at, how can we create something that can make impact? And I was really good at cultivating and seeing what did well and looking. I'm such a visionary. I can see really far ahead, but I'm also an executor. So I'm I remember this investor we had did the cultural index says, think of it like a higher end Myers-Briggs. And he was just like, you know, when he went over my results, he was like, Alex, like 2% of the population can keep up with you. And here's why. Because you score really high on visionary, but you score really high on logic. And it was like most people are one or the other. So think of Kanye. Like Kanye is a fucking amazing visionary, but Kanye needs someone to bring his ass back down to reality sometimes because he's so up there and we need that. But it's also like, well, we got to plant this so that we can bring it to life. So he probably has a lot of amazing, logical people helping him bring Donda to life right now. So that's really how I got into entrepreneurship. It was just taking all the pieces of my life and things I dabbled in. And I was like, wait, I can put this collection of experiences into one thing and also take hold and be in the driver's seat of my destiny. So that was a really big thing for me.
I love that, and I like how you talk about context matters, right? And you know, having that strong influence of your auntie to help give you that confidence that like this is where I could take it, this is where my impact on the world can go, and not everyone has that, and so you have to find that or take context that you get, and how does that help you drive? And so everyone has a collection of experiences. I always say your journey is impressive because it's yours. No one's going to go through your journey ever, point blank, period. Right. And so how do you take that and drive that forward? And where I think a lot of the missing piece, because I agree with you, I went to school, I graduated in 2010. So like when I was in college during the whole collapse and I was like, cool, whatever. And then I came out to the market and I was like, fuck, why was I paying more attention? And I didn't get into entrepreneurship until I moved to Italy, until after I got a master's degree. And that's when I really like fell into this. And then the more I think back and look, and where I feel like I tied loops is that I put context to everything and I tie these things together and I learn from it and figure out how to share and connect and evaluate. And that's where I think the education system misses sometimes, is that we teach you things, but we don't give you context on how to take those experiences and how you absorb that info and what that means for you going forward. And how do you take that into the world to make your impact? Whether that's entrepreneurship, whether that's accounting, whether that's marketing, whether that's whatever, no one teaches you like where does that line get put into action. And so many of us don't put into action. We just sit back and wait for things to happen, and that never works.
Well, it's like this, and that's such a good point, because it brings me back. I'm such a Gladwellian. I'm obsessed with Malcolm Gladwell, but
same here. So.
He's so amazing. But he's really good at putting things together. And, you know, one of the things I realized when it comes back to this, well, how do we allow people to, you know, think for themselves and connect these dots? When we look at like evolution, right? Like being a specialist before was really advantageous because, you know, you had very deep careers in specialties. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing now as we evolve is technology is taking over a lot of specialties. It's automating it. Mm-hmm. And Daniel Pink talks about this a lot. He is like, actually, you know, before being right-brained was seen as bad. Oh, you're just head in the clouds, whatever. But you can't automate creativity. You can't automate connection. You can't automate big thinking. That's not, tech can't do that. It automates tasks. Yeah. And so when we look at what we can do now from a systems perspective, whether it's in colleges, whether it's in programs that are supporting entrepreneurs, is it's not enough to just teach them specific tasks. It's saying, how do we connect this? How do we help you to think? How do we help you to think and connect the dots in relation to where you're trying to go and what needs to happen? Because theory is not enough. That's not enough. It's how do we now take this and execute against where you're ultimately trying to go, the impact you want to make, and test along the way. There needs to be a good balance between big level thinking, but also we need to get it done and actually do the work. So I'm excited to see where we moving forward from that perspective.
I love that. And that's actually why I love training and teaching. In fact, one of the things I also do is I go into schools and universities and teach like a 2-day up to a 3-week course of entrepreneurship. And the idea is to like, I want to kind of break shit, you know, fuck shit up a little bit, break shit, be like, hey, like this is actually what it's like. These are the things that you're not being told. You're being taught theory, but like theory is only great. You know, I don't need a 50-page business plan. Give me 10 slides in a deck and tell me what you're going to do and then go show me how you're going to make it happen. And so I feel you on this so much. And that's also why I think it's really important that there are communities and programs and collaboratives like Get Shit Done out there to show others how to do that, because we miss out on that so much. And so, so this is fascinating. So you had all these collection of experiences to show you that that you could do this. And so you started your first company, you grew it, and then you got acquired. And this is where you really started to see that you're the only one at the table that looks like you. I think you're actually like, what was that experience like? Tell me about what it felt like to build that company and where some of those moments of maybe angst, challenge, or aha came of like leading you into the Get Shit Done version of Alex while you're going through building this amazing company that had an acquisition and was a multi-million dollar. I mean, that's a huge thing.
So I think I might be like, for some people, this might be an eye roll because again, this goes back to a collection of experiences, but I actually thrive off of being the only one in the room. Because I also am like, how can, like you said, fuck shit up, right? Like, you know, of course I go into rooms that I know I'll be the only one, and I'm just like, I'm breaking the fucking wall down. Like this is exciting. Like I'm a natural fighter. My inclination is to fight first. So, which thank God my mom tamed that in me from a really young age. But like I'm like, oh, okay, I understand how this system works. And one of my favorite quotes is Miles Davis said, you have to learn the rules before you can break them. And I'm such a rebel. I love breaking shit. But for me, when it came down to example, growing up, my mom was, even though a lot of the neighborhoods we were in, we couldn't afford it. So we would get like an apartment there, and to make sure I went to the best schools, because my mom understood school districts. And so she was just like, she's going to go to this school. And so we would get an apartment there, and I would be usually one of the only black kids in the class. Fast forward, I get to University of Chicago. It's 4% Black people, and that's all Black. That's like not just Black American. That's like African, Caribbean. Like it was low. And then fast forward, I'm in the tech industry, and not only am I a woman, I'm a person of color. And so I'm just like, I was so used to already being in rooms where I was the only one. And so I was able to speak. I learned how to speak the language in the sense that I'm not going to dilute who I am to be in this room. I'm not going to change my hair. I'm not going to do any of that. Yeah. But I also know how to cultivate my passion and translate it to who I'm speaking to. I was also in theater, so I think that might have been a big thing as well. I'm good at like, how do you connect with an audience? So something I say to founders often is, example, a founder who's incredible. She bootstrapped her way to like 1 million ARR and now is fundraising. And she calls me. She's like, what's going on with these investors? Like, I don't know where I'm missing the mark. And I realized, and this is a conversation I have with founders often, is that I was like, oh shit, you're speaking Spanish and they're speaking Portuguese. I'm like, you're so close. You're so close. But the intention and who you're speaking to and what their expectations are, how do we get it on the same page? Because often when founders go into rooms, we're so fixated on our passion, our vision, and we're up there that we forget to bring people with us. And that's something we have to do a lot at Get Shit Done, because even with 4%, the reason we had to say fuck 4% is it sparks the conversation of what's 4%. We're about to roll out our merch. I was walking down the street in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, and some girl literally was on her bike. She works at Google, but was on her bike, and like I had my headset, and she like stalks me down for like 2 blocks trying to get my attention. She was like, wait, what does 4% mean? Like, tell me what that means. I've been at stores where people are like, what does 4% mean? It starts the conversation where I'm like, I know that if I go into all the stats first, I'm going to lose you. So I need to start and cultivate the story, which Rob's really great at, is let's start with why this matters, and then let's get in there. Because otherwise, if I just go into women don't have this much share in the economy and da-da-da, people are going to be like, wait, what? It's too, so that's really like, again, it goes back to these collection of experiences that got me to Get Shit Done. Being the only person in the room actually never gave me angst. It actually added more fuel for me to make room for more people that looked like me, and understanding that I truly believe that I was given the certain gifts that I've been given to be kind of a conduit to create those connections. And I don't take that lightly. So when someone comes, if you're in our orbit, we're bringing everybody with us.
Yeah, I love that. And there's a couple of just amazing kind of nuggets that you brought there. And, you know, we live in this age where, you know, we all are individual and we want to show our individuality, right? We are who we are. We're gonna own that. And then we walk into rooms and people don't like us. And we're like, well, what's going on? It's okay for you to be who you are and you want to do that. But you also, when it comes to business, just like with running a business, and you got to meet your customers for that, you also got to, like what you said, you got to be where they are. You want to be uniquely you, but you need to know how to craft your story, your message, the way that you approach that conversation to who you're meeting with or talking to, and reciprocate if you want that to go. And if you want to be like, I'm me, it is what it is. If people don't like you, that's okay. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with people being like, you know what? Rob's too hairy for me. I don't like that. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be okay with people not being okay with you. And I think that we want to be uniquely us, but we forget that there's always an action reaction, and we got to meet them where they are. And because the way you just shared your story, it was like, look, Alex, and for all those out there listening, and I've known Alex for not that long, but what I can tell you is that she will never not be her motherfucking self. But she knows how to approach different conversations and people in ways that allow her to get her point across. Because when she talks, people listen in any room. It's because she's been able to cultivate that. And as entrepreneurs, you need to learn how to do that, to cultivate going into a room and being able to start the conversation and owning that conversation no matter who's in the room. And that does mean changing yourself up a little bit. I always joke, I'm a chameleon. I very much am, because my collection of experiences is all over the place too. And my listeners know my story. I've kind of been a lot of different places, done a lot of things, and I've brought all that to the table that I can just, I can maneuver and flow with different groups and people and things because I've had to sit in those conversations or those experiences. And that's helped me get to where I'm at. Yeah. But I love that point because so many of us forget that piece right there of how to own the conversation and own your uniqueness.
Yeah, and this is such a good point because I think we conflate so often that either I'm going to be all myself and fuck it if you don't like it, or I need to conform and try to fit into a box, which I actually see more founders doing the latter, unfortunately, where I started pitching. The first time I ever pitched investors was at 19. And I was so intentional about, I knew the type of people getting funding, and I'm like, this is what I will not compromise. Yeah. Is I'm going to be Alex no matter what. Because first of all, I was a 19-year-old. I didn't have much experience. The only thing I can really sell you on is me. And honestly, that's in whether it's sales, whether that is in investor relationships, your people are investing in you. Yeah. And so when like someone like me who has struggled in the past with, fuck it if you don't like me, like I'm going to be so me. But it's also like, it's kind of like when I think about family dynamics, right? The way you speak to your siblings is going to be different than the way you speak to your parents. Mm-hmm. And so you can't have the same. I remember I made this mistake once with Cassandra Batdorf. My mom does not play. My mom, if you know the black mama stare, like they don't have to say anything. It's just a look and you're like, okay, I got you. But I remember I had gone from a friend's house and was kind of speaking to my mom the way I spoke to my friend. And my mom just stopped. She was like, I am not your friend. And so it just reminds me of, I don't change who I am in front of my mom. Mm-hmm. It's that I just need to adapt to the language I need to speak with her for us to communicate effectively. So I think it's the same thing for entrepreneurs. You should fundamentally be who the fuck you are in any room. But understanding that you need to meet the other person where they are and connect the dots and speak that language. And so you're not changing anything. You're just saying, I just want to be able to have a meaningful conversation with you. And mind you, there are just some people that you're not going to. And that's the other thing that you brought up, Rob, that I think is really important is so many founders I realize do this. You're trying to be liked by everybody or you're trying to be for everybody and you're for nobody. And even in product development, go-to-market strategies where I'm like, your competitor is not Amazon. Amazon will eat you right now. Yeah. Amazon was able to get to I'm for everybody because they got their niche right first. They were for a particular group first, book lovers. We're starting here. Then they say, ooh, that worked well. Why did book lovers work so well? Now can we templatize that and go to other groups? So even we get shit done. Like our flag right now is we are for women entrepreneurs building scalable companies. And you already have to have some traction. We're not for launch. The amount of women that come to us say, we want to be for good shit done. I have to send people to other places often because they're like, well, we're about to launch. And I'm just like, we're not for you. Yeah. We're not for you right now, but here's some amazing places that are for you. And so stop trying to be for everybody, whether it's your personality and connection and even in your product development, because that is a quick way to not only burn yourself out, but burn your company out.
Absolutely. I mean, I literally about jumped up when you said that because, like, this is my biggest thing. It's like, it's okay to test a little bit and go 6 inches deep and test, but once you know what hits and you really feel like where you're at, you got to go deep before you can go wide. Roots of a tree. If we don't know anything like that, why does a tree can stand outside and still be standing up after 100-mile-per-hour winds? Because it's got roots so deep holding it in the ground that it's so firmly planted. Like your business needs to be the same way before you can go scale into multiple markets because you'll fail. I mean, you don't need, you and I can go through examples of companies that we know personally that have failed at this. And so I think that I love that you say that. And so many people need to understand that. And that's where I think context of all this matters. And kind of going back to, storytelling. And this is why I love this piece. Simon Sinek, start with why. The biggest TED Talks in the world. When you're building a brand, you always start with why. But as founders, we forget to take the context of who we are first. So start with who, give your context so you can understand where that why is coming from. Because if you're trying to pull a why just because the market's telling you, then that's not an actual fucking why. There's nothing from your heart, right? There's nothing from your brain. So you got to understand who you are and bring the context to the why. And that to me is so powerful. I mean, I know I could talk to you for 4 hours about stuff, but I want to you brought this up and we've talked about this and the Get Shit Done community and the Fuck 4% and all this stuff. And I want to understand, you talked about you making an impact and the things that you want to do to show that others like you, being a woman founder, being a person of color, all these things, can do it too. Where do you continue to develop that, and how do you continue to develop that in others? Where does Alex's impact continue to go to show that and grow that every day, and kind of what you're building? Because to me, that's really impactful. Is being a white male, I don't always know that, and so share with us where that impact continues to grow and go, because I think so many people need to hear how they can continue to actually make impact. Because everyone can shout, "I'm an ally." That doesn't mean fucking shit.
No, it's a badge. It's now a girl. It's like a badge. The Scouts, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Now it's just a badge. And I'm like, we don't need allies. We need comrades. Get in the trenches. If you're about it, be about that life. So this is a great question. I'm going to take it a step back before I get into how we're doing it today. Okay. I think so often, and I forget what I was listening to, is there's an assumption that purpose is something immediately. I don't think purpose is cultivated until you have certain experiences that spark it. And that happens at different areas in life. Like my mom's still asking herself the question of what is my purpose? She's getting closer and closer. And now it's starting to reveal herself because she has all these collection of experiences. My purpose was sparked really early on. And early meaning probably when I left my last company, it was sparked. And those collection of experiences of why entrepreneurship mattered to me was as a kid, seeing my mom be a single mother and giving me everything. And my mom is the type where I never knew when we were doing without. I never knew when we were on food stamps, which we were. I never knew when, she told me this later, but when I was going into my second year of college, she almost had to pull me out because my financial aid was going to go away. And she was just like, I don't know what the universe did, but somehow it ended up. So I look at that, and I also look at my mom made all these sacrifices, and I'm sure so many people can feel this with their own parents, made so many sacrifices, but I see that their generation did not have the privilege we have now to just say YOLO. And there's reasons we say YOLO. We're like, we were fed a lie. We have all this damn debt. So YOLO, whatever. And so for her, I just saw there was just this often fear and scarcity. And I'm like, for all the things my mother has been able to do for me, do for our family, and do for the people around her, she deserves more. Yeah. And so I want more women to be able to do more and have that type of destiny. And now she definitely does. My mom does well for herself, but I saw her go through it. And then couple that with, I get an entrepreneurship, and I look at even part of my community, the Black community in particular. We will be at negative generational wealth by 2053 if we stay on the same trajectory. From all the experiences I had, and especially getting into entrepreneurship, it was, one, I cared so much about the women in my life, and I wanted more for them. But B, even seeing of the communities I care about, what gives us the freedom, what gives us the power to bring that type of influence back to our communities. And I kept seeing entrepreneurship over and over again. We don't have to rely on a system. Is that me scaling my company to as big as it's going to scale has nothing to do with me. I am one of the most frugal motherfuckers. I think having a car is a stupid investment. It makes me mad thinking about car investments. I am the type of, I will take the train as much as possible. And I understand in some geographies you need a car.
Yeah.
But I am like, I only need the bare minimum, and I like experiences, but I don't care about yachts and all that shit. I care about when we have this type of wealth, how can we put it in the hands of the communities we care about and have an impact so we're not reliant on systems that don't give a fuck about us. Mm-hmm. That's the why for me. And that didn't come, that purpose wasn't sparked until, and my resignation letter from my last company is very public. But when I resigned from my last company, the trigger for me was a year prior to my resignation. I felt this urge, like, you need to go build your next thing. But my identity got so wrapped up in what I was building, and I made that who I was. And that is a dangerous place to be in for anybody, especially entrepreneurship, is do not let what you build define who you are. That is the worst thing, because there's going to be ups and downs. That doesn't mean anything about you. Yeah. And so when I got to that place, the universe gives me all these signs and I kept ignoring them. The universe knows I'm very stubborn though. So the way it needed to punch me in the face was, I go home for a little bit, I come back, and I come to a meeting where it's one of my co-founders and an investor on my board saying, hey, we need you to step down as CMO to make room for gray hairs. And, well, maybe you can be a marketing manager in my own company, the company that I helped to raise money for, to get us to the certain revenue it was at. And it was just like, this whole reason I became an entrepreneur was to have optionality and power. But I realized the way I had gone about it was I put too much power in the hands of other people. And so all those experiences of what made me think of impact was, I care about these communities, but also I'll be fucking damned if another woman is back in that position of powerlessness that I felt in the very fucking thing that I built. Yeah. And it's about how we build our companies with intentionality, because if you're doing entrepreneurship and you're not thinking about your own ownership in it, what the fuck are you doing it for? Go be an employee somewhere. We should care about ownership because we built this from our blood, sweat, and tears. Yep. This matters. So how we do that today, to bring it full circle, is get shit done. When we say scaling generational impact, it's that traction isn't just about money. It's not just about building, I want to cancel this world and I don't even like the cancel culture, but unicorns, where we now keep telling people the only way to be successful and to scale is you got to build a unicorn. There's only going to be a few, and that's okay. But if you have $100 million company that's profitable, I think that's awesome too. Yeah. We got to give people optionality, but the system is very predatory when we keep trying to push people down the same path and saying that's the only way you can do it. So it gets shit done. It came back to, how do we put the founder back in the driver's seat? It's saying, what does your vision of impact look like? Mm-hmm. And what are the necessary steps you need to take to get there? Because maybe it's not going to raise a multi-million dollars. Maybe it's scaling your company through profits. So how do we do that? Otherwise, you start building something that you never really wanted to build because it doesn't match the vision and the impact you wanted to have.
That was fucking fire. Like, if anyone's listening to that, re-listen to that over and over again. And there's a number of things that you brought up there that I thought were just absolutely, it hit me in the feels. Because I noticed, like, building a company that you build out of necessity and not passion. Because you get to a point where you're just like, this is cool, but it's not what I wanted to do. I can't tell you how many founders come to me and be like, Rob, I need your help. I actually don't have ownership of my company. I'm like, what the fuck are you running a company if you don't have ownership? Why would you ever give up more than 50% to other people?
Oh, no. You know why? Because all these articles are telling them success looks like raising a shit ton, but we don't talk about what equity looks like. Ownership, equity that is your value. That is your value, not just the number of the amount you raise. It is the ownership piece and who else you're making owners. But you better have ownership as a founder. And that's Absolutely. A hard lesson I had to learn.
Yes. I mean, and the fact that you had to learn that the hard way sucks, but it also allows you to teach others. And it's actually one of the pieces of like why I want to go in and teach, entrepreneurs about this shit is that like can't tell you how many times I've seen this go the wrong way for founders and lose their business and lose their life's work. And I don't ever want to be put in a position to do that. In fact, it's one of the things that I try to coach people on, like, don't take funding unless you have to. What is wrong with being a $5 to $10 million company? That's fucking amazing.
That's amazing. And it's profitable. You know how many companies that have raised a shit ton of capital that haven't even reached profitability? And mind you, there are certain companies that are scaling to own markets, saturate markets. The majority of companies won't do that, though. And so you get all these founders. I even have friends now who have raised, series of freaking E with Lightbank. And they look back and they're like, this is a great ride, but probably my next company, I'm going to try to do it without it.
Yeah.
And so and it's not saying one is better than the other. That the question is not, is this path better? It's what matches the vision and impact you want to make, period.
Absolutely. Point blank. And that to me kind of comes back to what you said about being a driver's seat, is that we need to provide optionality. And I think we're in such an era of where it's either this or that. And it's like either this or that. It's never, hey, there's 2 options, there's 3 options, there's 4 options, and you have options. Pick the option that fits best with your vision and align those things together. It doesn't have to be, this only or that only. And that, I'm the same way. Like, I'm not a full-on rebel, but I never want to be put in a box. Like, I remember when I walked into the building and they told me to cut my hair, I was like, nope, that's not happening. You can let me go or not. I'll trim the beard. I may take out the earrings. That's fine at work. But cutting the hair, not negotiable. Like, I had that line.
Come
you
on,
want me to wear my jacket?
Yes.
You want to wear my jacket because you don't like when my tattoos show through my white shirt? No, don't care. Like, it's 97 degrees outside. Sorry. Not going to die because of that. So there's those things that I think all these lessons that come back, but understand it's not this or that. And when you understand that, and you build what you want to build, and you take and use the accessibility to resources, like things that Get Shit Done give you, like Bear Nation, like all these other things, you can pick what defines and works for you. Again, your journey is impressive because it's yours. Mm-hmm. Define your journey.
Yes.
You're on that ride.
And the people that love you, like, I notice the more I lean into who I am, and I think there's a difference because I am a natural rebel. So I've taken it super far because I just wanted to prove a point. That's what I'm talking about. It's when you are so unapologetic about, this is my line in the sand, like you're just saying, this is who I am, I'm not compromising that. That's when more people lean into you. The amount of people that I've had just reach out to me saying, I just want to help you because I like your energy. I like, you just like fed me whatever it is. Because I'm like, I'm not compromising that. And that's ultimately what people invest in. And so it's not compromising yourself. It's defining, what am I willing, who do I need to show up as for me to feel good about myself? Because if you don't feel good about yourself and you're trying to seek that validation in funding and connections you make, that is a very slippery slope.
Absolutely. And that's also, Get Shit Done. Amazing what Alex has built. She could open that up to everybody, but then it loses what it was all about.
Yep.
And that is the exact point. So many other people are like, oh, this is working. I'm making money from this. Let me open up to everybody and like run it in 4 different groups. And then you fail all of it because you lose the nature of who you are. So that's what I love about this episode. That's what I love about talking to you. And what I think I love about this whole I'm like buzzing too, because there's just so many key takeaways here. But for everyone out there, remember that. And I think this is actually from, and I love this line that Alex has on her LinkedIn, and it actually kind of sums up what I was about to say even better. Real growth is making a status quo breaking impact, not just growing for growth's sake. Like, that is very poignant, right? Real growth is making a status quo breaking impact. It's not growing for growth's sake. Too many of us just grow for growth's sake. We put this, growth mindset, culture, hey, let's grow. And there's no impact to it. There's no reason that you're doing it, and if you don't have a reason, you're lost, and you need to find that and find that passion and drive. And guess what? That may happen at 20, that may happen at 30, that may happen at fucking 60, because we evolve and change as humans. The way I thought, felt, and was at 16 is not who I am at 34. Don't hold me to that. I've learned a lesson, a lot. I have failed more than I have succeeded, and that's changed who I am to who I am today. And I think we forget that sometimes. So I love that line, and I actually was trying to think what to say. I just looked over, and it's like that line is so important, and it's such a great piece. So I appreciate you for sharing on this, Alex. And I know that we're getting pressed to time, so I want to kind of ask those lightning questions and close this out, because I know I could talk to you forever, and I think that I'm going to have to bring you back for a part 2 and go down some different paths, because this episode I already know is going to be fire. But first question for you. For those out there, millennials, Gen Z, or anybody that's entrepreneur-minded, that's thinking about being an entrepreneur, what advice would you give them?
I would say understand where you want to make an impact. Like, why do you care about it? I think you mentioned this before. Start with why. Like, the best products example of this is you don't even have to love the thing you might be selling, right? Tony Hsieh, even though he was the CEO of Zappos, he basically became the founder, right? He grew it to what it was. He talks about this, or he used to talk about this. He's like, I don't give a fuck about shoes. I care about customer service. Zappos was one of the top customer service companies in the world. And his whole thing was, if we can take this model and disrupt industries that historically have shitty service, like think of how many like utility companies, USPS, like shitty service. How can we take this template, very much like Amazon? You take the templates. What's your books? You start with, how do we templatize it? So I would just say, don't just try to be an entrepreneur for the glamorization, because it's not glamorous. Because you read all these articles about what happened to a founder when they finally blew up. No one talked about those nights where they were fucking in a ball rolled up anxious. No one talked about when you're thinking about, where is my next check going to come from so I can actually live? No one talks about that. No one talks about the everyday that you might be putting out fires. So I would just say, don't do it for the gram. Don't do it because you think you'll be an influencer. Do it because you want to truly make impact in something that matters to you. So you get up every fucking day and you do it to serve the very people that are going to benefit from the impact.
I love that. So, I love that. And that, like a mic drop moment right there. And I have more questions for you. What do you think your superpower is?
So I am a super connector, but again, context is I am also a very systems thinker. So I connect dots. I studied sociology, and it's really funny because when I speak at conferences, they're like, especially with college kids, they're like, sociology, how does that go to business? And I'm like, I understand people and how people operate within certain frameworks. I'm like, you get people down, fuck everything else. So I not only think about connecting, it's not just connecting for connecting's sake, it's saying in a system, how would this make an impact by connecting these two people? And I will have I have this weird thing where I feel like I have a running list in my head on autopilot that will, like, I talk to Rob tells me he's working on this thing, and either that day or maybe 3 months down, I'm like, met another person that says they're trying to do the same thing. Oh, like spidey senses, make that connection. Yep. And that's super important to me because in the space we're in, at Get Shit Done, is we are up against a system. This is my legacy company. This is not an exit within 5 to 7 years because we are literally creating a new system, and that takes time. And in order to do that, though, we have to be intentional about systemic change versus surface level change. And unfortunately, and there's a lot of things with good intentions, we're looking too much at the surface and trying to create solutions for the symptoms, but not actually executing on the problem. So there's so much around funding. If women just had funding, everything will be changed. And I'm like, women don't have revenue. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like, you can throw her in front of all these investors all you want, but they're going to keep telling her the same thing. And I also don't want her to get in front of an investor too early where it dilutes her ownership stake. Mm-hmm. And so that's super important to me. So I'm not only a connector, I'm a systems connector.
I love that. I'm a huge fan. I actually used to always say that my superpower was a super connector, but I've since changed it in that my superpower really comes around energy and passion. And because of that, I'm able to do all the things that I do, which is connect a lot of dots. Because I am very much like big picture always. I'm not the greatest executor. I can, but it takes a lot. Like, I have to really push myself to execute and be in the right headspace to do. Otherwise, I have great ideas and never execute. So that's how I've like changed that answer. But I love the way you said that, the systems piece, because that is, so many people miss that, and that is a huge win. I know we talked a lot about Malcolm Gladwell, but what's one book, resource, show, piece of content you would recommend for those out there to pick up and read, listen, or consume?
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat and just say two. So one of my favorites is Go Giver. It's a really short read, and it's more of a story-based book around leadership, and basically saying the number one strategy in business is giving. And let's not get this twisted, because I see especially women do this often, is giving without reciprocity. You can still give and have a reciprocity, and it might not happen in that moment, but it's also saying be mindful that your time is the most valuable thing you have. So be intentional about how you're giving and who you're giving to, but also understanding giving is such a huge way that we rise together. And the other one that I just finished is Adam Grant's Originals. And just the rebel in me loves it, because, it's just saying like the most groundbreaking things. Like, people can say Steve Jobs was an asshole all they want, but like, he was just so stubborn. Like, Jeff Bezos has a really good quote that I always remember, is like, be stubborn on the vision, flexible on the details.
I love that. And I'm a big fan of the Go Giver. I have all of them, Go Over, Self-Mark, Leadership, all that. I'm a big fan of that. In fact, it's actually one of the books that I reread when I started writing my book, to give me inspiration of like how I wanted the story to flow. Because the book I'm writing is all around building with intentionality and authenticity a network, mastering your personal brand. But I want it to have an aspect of storytelling. I don't want it to be just another business book as a playbook. It's not a fucking playbook, right? There's a story and an art to what you have to do, and it's whatever process fits you as the person. Whether you're an extrovert or introvert, there's processes, and we show you how to do it, but it's up to you to find that level. So I love that. When you think about this episode, you think about all this stuff you're doing, what's a lasting message that you want Bear Nation to hear from you?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, the first question you asked. And it always comes back to, like, do what matters. Like, if you are going to get up, and especially in entrepreneurship, to do this shit every single day, you need to care about it. Why does it matter? Don't just do it because if you're doing it for the money, good luck. Good luck. My favorite entrepreneurs and leaders are the ones that they have such a clear why every single day. If that's your family, if that's your community, if it's the people you're serving, and I hope it's the people you're serving, understanding why, because that will get you through the craziest of times. So if you can get up and really be clear on, this is why I do what I do and why it matters to me, and keep that at the forefront every single day. Because I know the mistake I made in my last company that exhausted me and made me stop actually caring about what I built is I forgot why I was even doing it.
I love that. Don't forget that. And that's such an important message for everyone to take away, and a great way to end this episode. So, Alex, how do my listeners find you? How can they consume your content, get involved, and connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. So mostly shegetsshitdone.com. It's our website. You can check out what we're doing. The biggest thing I always tell folks, whether you're a woman or male or however you identify, is with Get Shit Done, we're very intentional about our language. So one of the things we say is we're not looking for partners, we're looking for comrades. And that means getting into the trenches, doing the work. If you say you support women entrepreneurs, show up. That means not just posting it on your LinkedIn. That doesn't do shit. The black box everyone did for Black Lives Matter, that doesn't stop people from being killed. So what is helpful is if you are interested in getting involved and supporting, that means checking out our founders, seeing what they're doing. How can you support them? And support could be, I mean, Rob came and did a talk with our founders, a session, and it could be just saying, oh, I'm going to purchase something from her website. I'm going to make an intro for her because she's in this space, and maybe they're doing DEI. Wait, my company could really use this. Those things make lasting impact and change. So I would just say, be a comrade. And if you want to check out what we're doing, go there. And then you can always reach out to our team and see if you're like, I don't really know how to get involved. Here's some of the things I do. We're happy to collaborate and kind of spitball ways that you can support and actually create lasting change.
I love that. So I will make sure to have all that down in the show notes so you can easily find She Gets Shit Done and all the good shit that you can get involved into. And Alex, thank you so much for bringing the energy, bringing so much good knowledge and nuggets of wisdom. I appreciate you taking time today to join me. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Bear Nation, until next time, stay well. Bear Nation, once again, thank you for listening to the Bare Necessities of Entrepreneurship. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, take care.